The date is December 22nd, 2021, and today we will be going over how to fill out and complete the 2022 Bowling Championships registration and scores form. First thing I'd like to mention is here, looking at my screen, is how to access the bowling and scores form. Now, there was an email sent out on November 30th to all LPCs across the state, so local program coordinators across the state, that had the information on it as far as the registration and scores form, games information packet, etc. If you're looking for that information, you can also go to somt.org/bowling, BOWLING -championships, CHAMPIONSHIPS / This is the page that has all information for the 2022 Bowling Championships, including locations. It will have division flights and schedules, results, and the alleys that are being utilized on each day. In addition, down here near the bottom, the video that we are now recording will be placed here. But in addition, you can click on this to see the games information packet and the registration and scores form. Now, actually moving over to the registration and scores form, we'll go on go through how to fill this out here. So this scores form is due on January 7th. And that is due, this specific form is due to Scott Held at sheld@somt.org. All other paperwork, such as medicals, COVID, code of conducts, and waivers, those all go to Richie Whitney at rwhitney@somt.org, as you can see in this cell. So how we would fill this out right off the bat, we would go with LPC name. We'll just list an example LPC. LPC phone number. LPC email. This is so we can contact you, of course, in the event there are any issues or we need to follow up with you on any of your scores or spellings of names, etc. on this form. Now, your address. We do ask for the LPC address in the event you are competing in the Compete for Practice model, because this is the address that we will send your awards to when the competition is complete. So for this very specific case, we're going to say that John has one athlete who's competing in the Compete from Practice model. So he'll list his address: 1 Main Street, Helena, Montana, 59601. The address there that the Special Olympics Montana State Office can now mail competition awards to for the Compete from Practice athletes or unified partners on the team. Now, the important dates here, this section. Of course, even though these dates have passed, most of these, or a handful of these here, 11/30 and 12/6 were bowling coach education opportunities. December 6th was the official start to the bowling practice season. If your team started a little bit after or a little bit before, that is not a problem. We just want to remind you that we do need 3 full games completed up to January 7th so we can get good scores for divisioning. And in addition, we need to have at least 10 hours of practice completed before your competition. January 7th is when all paperwork and registration and scores form is due. January 30th, as of now, Billings and Conrad will be going for their bowling championships that day. February 4th, Bozeman, Glasgow, and Lewistown will have their bowling championships. February 7th, Miles City, Missoula, and Polson will have their bowling championships. February 16th, Big Fork, Great Falls, and Whitefish. February 18th, Butte and Helena will hold their bowling championships. And also on February 18th, all final scores for the Compete from Practice model or the Compete from Practice participants are due. Now, those forms will be submitted. Those final scores will be submitted on this form, and we will go through that a little bit later. All right, so the first section we're getting to here now is the volunteer section. And as the instructions say, we want to list every registered volunteer that will be attending in person during the 2022 bowling championships. Now, why we are asking for in-person attendees is because under the current COVID protocols released by Special Olympics International, we are still required to stay within a 50-person limit as far as Special Olympics participants go. So we need to know every person that will be attending the day of competition. That way we can go ahead and schedule and plan to stay within the 50-person guidelines. As an example, we'll list John Smith. We want to list John again, even though it's the LPC. That way we know John will be there. We'll also list, we'll say his wife or his spouse, Mary Smith, who is a coach. And we'll list one more volunteer who perhaps would be a parent. And that would be, we'll say Joe Schmo. I don't know if that's how you spell that, but that's how we're going to spell it today. And that'll be a volunteer. Okay. So those are the three people that would be attending on behalf of this team. All right. Now we roll down through here into the participant section. Now going through the participant section, we're going to go through each note here. Note 1, list the sum of the participants' best singles scores, 3 best singles scores added together in the total score column. So that is this column. Note 2, the total score column, again, this column right here, the total score column automatically totals the scores entered in games 1, 2, and 3 columns. It is not required to put a score in each of these columns, but there must be a score in the total score column for divisioning. So as an example, we'll use John Doe here. John Doe, now keep an eye on the total score column. With John Doe, let's say we put in a 99, it automatically changes John's score. Now in the event, let's say we don't want to list any scores for John. We'll just blank them out. And if we want to just list the 3 best scores combined, you don't want to worry about plugging in cell 1, 2, and 3 there. You can just go ahead and put in John's score. Just go ahead and type in. That will erase the formula that was in there, and these will no longer work as far as totaling goes. As you can see, it won't work anymore for totaling in the total score column, but that is an option if so desired. All righty. Note number 3, participants competing in the in-person bowling championships or compete from practice event may choose one event from this list. Singles, singles ramp unassisted, singles ramp assisted, unified doubles. So in other words, your unified partner and athlete have to select one event. That's it for these competitions this year. We're doing just one event, but 3 games for every participant, as you can see below. If you select unified doubles, list the athlete or unified partner's teammate's name in the teammate name column. The event name may not fit totally in this column, as you can see. For example, with Jane Doe, Jane is competing in unified doubles with John, but the name doesn't fit in there. That's okay. We'll go ahead and edit that when you submit it in. That way it all fits on one sheet of paper in case we need to print it. But don't worry about that. Just go ahead and type in their event and we'll take care of that when you submit it. All right. So as you can see here, though, John and Jane. So John is an athlete. Jane is a unified partner. They're both competing in unified doubles. We have the 3 best total scores for each of them. And then we listed their teammate names together, Jane and John. Now, for a team this small that only had 2 unified doubles, folks, that's pretty straightforward. But for a team that might have 20, 30, 40, 100 athletes, we want to make sure that we list the teammate name for sure. Because with John, we'll say, depending on how you set up your form, John might be up here, but Jane might be way down here. And that keeps it straightforward for us as we enter your athlete and unified partners information into our computer system here, GMS, the games information system. That helps us keep it straight, so we know who's on a team with each other. We don't have to follow up with you guys. All right, note number 4. For participants in the compete from practice event, please bold their name. So example being here, Sally Smith. You see right here, you just click the B and Sally's name is bolded. Or you can email SOMT Sports Director Scott Held, who you're submitting this form to, and let him know the names of those participants. So if you don't want to bold out Sally's name, you can just email Scott and say Sally Smith will be doing the compete from home model. Now, as far as entering in here, it's pretty straightforward. Sally Smith, even though Sally is doing the compete from home model, Sally would still have everything listed the same. So we list Sally's name, Sally's role, Sally's event. The events for the compete from home and in-person models are the same. And then Sally's 3 best scores. Now, note number 5 ties into this next piece. The final score column only needs to be used for participants in the compete from practice event for their final scores. So for Sally, what you're going to enter for final score is Sally's 3 best final scores. So the total score for her registration was 145. We'll say she improved to 175, and boom. Then you would submit that on February 18th to SOMT Sports Director Scott Held. You would submit this form. Now, since your other 3 athletes would be doing the in-person model, we don't need to fill in these cells. We can leave them blank since they'll be competing in person. But since Sally won't be competing in person, we need to have a final score submitted so we can get her some results and an award. Then, of course, note number 6, in the role column, list athlete or unified partner. So pretty straightforward here. We list the role, athlete or unified partner, because those are the only roles that someone can compete in. So name, role. Also under name, we're going to bold out somebody or email SOMT Sports Director Scott Held if they're doing compete from practice. Then we're going to list their event. So as you can see here, the first 2 examples are unified doubles. The 3rd example is traditional singles. And the 4th example is singles ramp assisted. Now, if you have an athlete that wants to do singles ramp unassisted, you would just type that in here as well. We'd list their 3 best scores, which is optional, of course, because you can just put the total score there for their 3 best games if you want to. But we'd list their 3 best scores, which will auto total again. Now, if they're in unified, then we would list their unified doubles partner. If they're not in unified, we would just go ahead and leave that blank. And then in the final score column, if they're doing compete from practice, we're going to go ahead and we are going to go ahead and put in their final score. So the 3 scores, their 3 best scores throughout the season added together. And then we would go ahead and leave the rest of the cells blank for everybody that is participating in person at the bowling championships. And as you can see, we have a lot of cells available for very large teams, but that's the extent of the form. So if you have any questions, please reach out to SOMT Sports Director Scott Held at sheld@somt.org or call at 406-216-5327. Thank you all. We look forward to seeing you at the bowling championships. And if not, we look forward to seeing the results from your team and mailing them out. And we hope you guys have a fun time with the 2022 bowling championships season.